SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Middays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. Middays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday, y'all.
Well, it's snow, ice, freezing rain, Mageddon coming in, right? That's
Snowmageddon and the ice apocalypse.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Otherwise known as Fern.
What's that?
That's the name they gave this winter storm.
Fern?
Fern.
Wait, did I miss something? We name winter storms now?
Apparently.
Gosh. Okay. As the great Johnny Carson would say, I did not know that. Well, man, so the grocery stores are being overwhelmed, inundated because of the pending doom of the winter weather. Man, I went to buy water, not because of the storm, but Wednesday after the show, the local Kroger, not a bottle of water in the whole dang store. I had to go to a gas station and buy water. Already, that was Wednesday. Of course, I was off yesterday down on the beautiful Mississippi Gulf Coast, and it was so bizarre. Rhino, I left here early in the morning, and of course, it was raining yesterday morning, and a bit chilly, just that dampness, you know. I hop on 49, and it's raining all the way, kind of that miserable sort of misty rain. And I get south of Hattiesburg, and then the skies start to clear, get down to Biloxi, where I met with the Biloxi Businessmen's Club at the famous Mary Mahoney's. It was bright, brilliant blue sky and about 68 degrees, just quite the contrast, and then headed back afterwards, of course. So we've got the National Weather Service coming on at 12:05 with the latest.
We're actually changing that.
Oh, excuse me.
Last minute audible, we're not going to talk to the National Weather Service because we have a cooler interview.
I just saw it.
We're getting the hurricane hunters on because they're flying into Fern.
Oh, how cool is that? Just got that from our content director. I just got the same text you did. Okay. At 12:05. So we'll get a hurricane hunters update.
Nothing against the fine folks at the National Weather
Absolutely.
Service. It's just they don't fly into hurricanes for a living.
No, they don't. Okay, so the latest, however, shows sort of that line, right? The line of demarcation. Everything north of that is bedlam. And
everybody's watching that freezing line.
Exactly. So here for us in central Mississippi, the latest freezing rain, I believe, on a Sunday, correct? Mainly in the morning into the afternoon with some chance of ice.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
The icing could be anything from minuscule to quarter, half an inch.
We don't know. But north.
All depends on when the precipitation stops and the temperature drops.
Okay.
Because as of an hour ago was the last I checked, this particular little tidbit, the wintry mix is supposed to drop off and fade out and get on out of central Mississippi right about the same time the temperature hits 32.
Right.
So if that overlap isn't real great, then the icing may be at a minimum.
Gotcha. But
it's likely not to freeze on the roads at that point. It's going to be freezing on power lines and limbs that could affect power lines and stuff like that.
So I will share that.
In central Mississippi. North Mississippi, y'all are going to get cold and
it's going to
get icy.
We have a couple of counties, right, that are under a warning, winter storm warning, I believe, up in the northern tier of the state. And above that is really something. Tennessee, the valley there, flights today already being canceled, already seeing that, like thousands of them. And certainly anything even north of Tennessee, it's going to sweep through. 200 million, the latest I saw, are in the storm's path in the great United States. So, yeah, it's likely to cause a bunch of problems. You know, the other thing it caused, if you guys have been paying attention to this, the price of natural gas spiked up this week. 60%. You seen that? 60%. Check me on that. I swear I saw a report on that this morning that the price of natural gas, because of the expectation of a spike in demand as a result of the storm, and so that's driving the price up. What do you see there?
63% since Monday.
There you go. Just on the weather reports at this point. Man, oh man. So that those who rely on natural gas for heat in particular expect to see their bills skyrocket. Boy, that's not good. People are already complaining about the cost of energy, so that...
Well, the silver lining on that dark cloud is when a natural gas bill skyrockets, it goes from 25 to 50.
That's true. I agree with you.
When you have you got a leaky toilet that's running for a day or two, and you get that water bill, and it goes from 75 to 100 to 250, 300.
Yeah, you're right. But mine is a bit pricier than that. I think that's because I have gas appliances and gas water heaters, and I don't think this draws a lot, but I've got 5 decorative gas lanterns on the outside of my house. I don't think that's a whole lot of gas being used there, contributing into that. And
it's not a lot, but that is precipitously more gas than the average gas user.
Probably so. Well, am I like a bad guy for using gas like that for those decorative lamps? Would I be out of favor with the climate nuts?
No, a decade and a half ago, the climate nuts would have been patting you on the back. Natural gas is green.
That's true. Where did we go off the rails on that?
And people think I'm gaslighting. Do people not remember
totally
the garbage trucks running on natural gas and how that was such a big thing because it was good for the environment?
Completely do.
With all the stickers on them with the natural gas logo and the blue and the teal.
That's
Does nobody remember
right.
that?
No, I do, and it doesn't matter because the goal is for you to just do without. That's what they want. They just want to cause pain. And it's because they're miserable souls that never smile, never enjoy anything in life, never laugh. They're just dour individuals, I guess is what I would say. Man, oh man. So we got this big storm. Now, what should you be doing? Fox has a report. I don't know if you've seen this. This is what they recommend. This is actually from the National Weather Service, stocking up. Of course, if I read this, people are going to make a run on the stores. Flashlights with extra batteries, extra food and water, a battery-powered NOAA weather radio. Okay. Extra prescription medications and first aid supplies. Baby necessities such as diapers and formula. An emergency heat source such as a properly ventilated space heater.
I'm on board with all of those except the prescriptions. Why do you need extra prescriptions? Like if you take a heart medicine twice a day, unless you're up for a refill, you're only going to be taking them twice a day. And this isn't going to last for a month and a half.
And that's what it kind of seems like. That
sounds like you're packing for an Antarctic expedition.
And this one you need to pay attention to, my friend. Extra pet food.
I just started a new bag of dry food. She's fine.
Oh, my gosh. Unbelievable. So, That's what's happening. We've got Joe Maloney coming in the next segment. He's the president of Sports Betting Alliance. You know what that's all about, folks? We're talking about mobile sports betting down there at the Capitol again. We shall see what happens. Now, have you seen any legislation, Rhino, to this point that has been filed that would create a mobile sports betting program? I know there's been a couple of related bills, have they not? But I haven't seen anything that explicitly would create and produce a mobile sports betting program.
Yeah, the only one I've seen that really seems to do what we would want it to do would be House Bill 519. That's the one I've been watching.
Okay. Who's the author of that? Do you know?
I don't have state up yet.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to pull it up as well when we get into the next segment. It's Joe Maloney, president of Sports Betting Alliance. We're just getting kicked off here from the Element Wealth studio. Stay with us. Coming right back.
Do you have transportation?
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Bring it on! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. We're pleased to welcome now Joe Maloney, president of the Sports Betting Alliance. Hey, Joe, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you're well familiar with the situation here in Mississippi, as we have attempted to no avail for a couple of years now to create mobile sports betting and to allow mobile sports betting within our state. You're also well aware that Mississippi does allow casino gaming. It is somewhat restricted to certain locations and some other requirements as well. But we were able to get a bill out of the House a couple of years ago. Representative Casey Urey introduced, and it got transmitted down to the Senate, where it promptly died. It went away. We got another bill, Rhino and I were just talking about it, HB 519, introduced by Representative Jay McKnight a few days ago. So what are your thoughts about this? Why can't we get this done in Mississippi, and why do we need to do it?
Well, it's great to be here today, and I would lead with Mississippi is a really proud gaming state, right? It's just the historic expansion of our industry from casino gaming to now sports betting. Mississippi's been a big part of that, and really what that means when it comes to online sports betting is it really just comes down to a multi-stakeholder dialogue. So to the extent that there are remaining jurisdictions to actually bring this activity online, which you and I both know, it's where our lives happen here, right on the phone.
Yeah.
It just comes down to working through, how you can platform this activity in a legal, regulated manner that uplifts the entire industry throughout the state, accounts for some of the stakeholder concerns, when it comes to this activity now being in the palm of the hands of the citizens of Mississippi and the residents of Mississippi. But you know what? I also say it probably feels like a long time for folks in the state, but you mentioned at the top, there's been a lot of progress. Mr. Ure has been just an incredible champion for the online industry and pushing this in the state. We're going to continue to rely on Mr. Ure and others, and we're going to take the dialogue where it needs to go. And it's been pretty much confined to the state Senate down there in Mississippi, but we're confident and we're just going to keep trying because, I think what's really important is the fact that we do get this platformed in a legal, regulated manner online, because what's unfortunate, Gerard, and you obviously know this, Mississippians are going to find a way to do this. We want them doing it in a legal place online, not illegal or unregulated.
Yeah, so I serve on the board of the Mississippi Lottery Corporation, which was created in 2018, and I learned after that so many of our citizens were just crossing the river into Louisiana and, of course, buying lottery tickets, especially when the multi-state jackpots were up there. And in the lottery world, they call that leakage. So I think that's leakage of revenue, right? So we should point out that in Mississippi, you can place wagers on sports events and so forth now, as long as you're on a casino property. It's restricted to that. So those platforms exist. This would allow it anywhere within our borders. And as you rightly point out, Joe, that's happening now. There are people who are finding a way to circumvent and utilize the tools, but we're not getting any revenue for that, is the bottom line. So I got to ask you this. I remember Rhino and I discussing this when North Carolina, last year, enacted legislation that would allow mobile sports betting. And as I recall, the amount of revenue they were generating was off the charts. I mean, wildly exceeded their expectation. Crazy numbers. I haven't seen whether or not that's sort of normalized and calmed down now, but it is producing tidy sums of money for these states.
Yeah, Gerard, I mean, nationally, we are going to be approaching $10 billion in revenue, in tax revenue.
Man, that's incredible.
For the states. Different taxation levels across different states, but generally speaking, the opportunity is anywhere from, 50 to 100 to 200 million annually. It's pretty dramatic depending upon the state. We're online, live, and legal in 30 jurisdictions in this country.
Okay.
Legal sports betting, retail, and online, plus retail only, is about 39 jurisdictions. So there's a few additional jurisdictions to go. Mississippi continues to be an important part of the conversation, and it's for what you just brought up, Gerard, which is, you've got you're surrounded by jurisdictions that provide this opportunity online.
Yeah.
So to the extent that folks, aren't able to get to a brick and mortar casino to place a few bets, or a legally approved platform outside of a casino that is physical in nature, you're crossing a state line.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. We sit here right on the eve of something that will probably keep us all indoors over a weekend when there's some playoff football going on, and wouldn't it be great to be able to just place some of these bets from your phone on a legal, regulated, sports betting app. And so this is really exactly sort of what we're talking about, which is, it's foolish to think that folks won't find the opportunity to participate in this weekend's NFL matchups, simply because it's not available to them legally online. Like, we know this is happening. When we started this effort back when the Supreme Court permitted states to legalize sports betting in their own jurisdictions, 3 out of every 4 bets in this country were placed on illegal or unregulated platforms. We've done a pretty good job now legalizing this activity and migrating those bettors out of illegal and unregulated settings to the point where now 3 out of 4 bets happen in legal, regulated platforms,
wow,
online or in person. So that progress, though, we still have to do a better job. We were at $150 billion in handle on sports bets in illegal settings prior to 2018. We've chipped away at that, and according to the last estimate by one research organization, that number is now around $80 billion. So there's still a lot of this activity, unfortunately, happening online, illegal and unregulated in Mississippi. And champions like Mr. Ure in the House and others are pointing to, hey, let's achieve 2 things by bringing online sports betting to our jurisdiction, to our home state.
He's got two bills, by the way, this year.
Yeah, let's create legal protections for consumers in this state. An operator doesn't pay out a bet. You can't access your winnings. You have recourse. You can call the regulator. You can call the attorney general, right? The companies that operate legal online platforms in any given jurisdiction, they have to be licensed by the state. They have to go through background checks. They have to go through financial health checks. There's actuarial analyses to make sure these companies can actually pay out winnings when they're actually due, right?
Yeah.
So you're given those consumer protections. You're also given the important protections around, responsible gaming and some of the public health components to remind folks to keep their play positive. And then the second piece is obviously the tax revenue, which you brought up and we discussed just a second ago. It's pretty big. It can fund some really important priorities that the people of the state of Mississippi decide it needs to go towards.
Yeah.
And there's no formula for that. It's what folks in these jurisdictions believe. In Colorado, it goes to water preservation. In Mississippi, it might go to the public employment retirement system for some of the unmet obligations there.
Yep.
In New York State, it goes to public education. In Maryland, where I live, it goes to public education. So that's where this comes, really something that is valuable to these jurisdictions.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens this year for sure, but the $10 billion figure is staggering, honestly, but not surprising. And the point we should make is this is voluntary. This is not taxes that are compulsory that the government forces. If you don't want that revenue to flow to the government, then don't play. But people view the playing as it's a form of entertainment. And so the amount they win or lose is just part of the entertainment experience, and the government gets a little fee as part of that. So it makes sense to me, and it's again voluntary. Same point we make about the lottery, which has exceeded our expectations as well here in Mississippi.
It really is. It's an opportunity to engage with the sports you love for some fans. It's not for everybody.
Totally.
It's just it's that level of engagement.
We got about 30 seconds. How do we manage the perceived conflict with the casino operators in Mississippi?
Great question. That's really what I was speaking more vaguely to with the multi-stakeholder dialogue.
Yeah.
Those are discussions that are the members that I represent, the national online brands. We've got to show up. We've got to be present down there. We've got to solve for some of the concerns that they have. And really make sure that, when online platforms come into a jurisdiction alongside our peers in the brick and mortar space, a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think there's a way we can achieve that. And we're optimistic with champions like Mr. Ure and others in the State House and the State Senate, we can get it done.
Joe Maloney, president of Sports Betting Alliance. Appreciate you calling in today, Joe. Enjoy the conversation. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Be safe this weekend.
You bet. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From the Seabrook.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. We got Caleb Sailors, Multimedia Journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News, in the Element Wealth studio at 11:20. And then we were originally scheduled to have the National Weather Service, but instead we've got Lieutenant Colonel Sean Cross, I believe, right? That's coming on.
Yep, with the 53rd Reconnaissance Squadron.
Hurricane Hunters, a.k.a. Hurricane Hunters. They're planning to fly into the teeth of this winter storm. That should be an interesting conversation. You'll want to hang around for that one for sure. On the C Spire text line, which is 601-879-4395. Everyone in Northeast Mississippi who rode out the ice storm of 94, self-included, are preparing. We were without power and water for a week. Don't want any part of that storm. Yeah, I don't think this is scheduled to be quite as severe at this point. And correct me if I'm wrong, but in just keeping an eye on the forecast, it seems to have decreased in severity over the last week. I mean, earlier in the week, it was pretty dire. But since then, it's kind of pulled back a little bit.
Yes and no. Like the early in the week forecast, the computer was spitting out 20 inches of snow, 1.5 inches ice, and it couldn't pinpoint where.
Right.
As the time has progressed and the forecasts have gotten more and more accurate as it gets closer to the time, just the way forecasting works, you still got pockets where they're expecting 20 inches of snow and 1.5 inches ice. They've just been able to pinpoint where that's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, the change I think I've seen through the week is that line that shows the various colors of the different forms of precipitation. That's certainly moved quite a bit. Seems like it's edged a little northward over the week, which makes those of us in central Mississippi less vulnerable. Now, when Will and I were talking, he was looking at the forecast like Tuesday, and it was calling for 24 inches of snow in Memphis and 30 in Nashville. So I think that those figures have both been pulled back somewhat. Last
for
I
Memphis
checked.
and Nashville, yeah.
Yeah.
Last I checked, there's a big blob between those two where they're expecting 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow.
And then our northern counties that border Tennessee as well are looking like they're in for it. And then the lows, the temperature lows over the evening hours in the northern part of our state, those seem like those have been lifted just a tad as well. They weren't. We were in single digits earlier in the week, and I think we're maybe close to 10 or above that now at this point. But nonetheless, yeah, I'm looking at a map right now. They got it up on the screen on the Business Channel. 235 million in the path of dangerous winter storm is what the headline says on this report. And of course, they've got a reporter at an airport, and you know that's miserable. That's totally miserable. That folks know they're going to be stranded there for a while, and they're showing Rhino right now a on the screen there. They've got the camera pointed to the big electronic board showing all the flights. And it's just canceled all over the place. 1,300 delays today, 400 cancellations, and 1,600 cancellations tomorrow, according to Flight Aware, which is a pretty good resource for that sort of information. So,
and then you got folks in Hattiesburg and along the Gulf Coast that are going, yeah, it might be a little rainy.
Exactly.
Might be a little cold. We're not going to have to worry about any of it.
That is precisely right. 94, 1 week without electricity. Here, hold my beer. I lived in the county at the end of a cul-de-sac. It was almost 6 weeks. Everybody just reached down and pulled your bootstraps up. Totally true. I will say, Rhino, it seems like that sort of changed procedure and policy in that we seem to be a lot more proactive since then in eliminating the overhanging branches and the vegetation that it certainly could cause a problem. I'd say we're a lot better at that. You know, one thing I am concerned about, for what it's worth, is just the gazillions of dead pine trees out there from the drought a couple of years ago. You can drive up and down the trace, and they're everywhere. Now, they're set off the road, mostly, but there are some areas where they're not, and that could cause problems. These dead trees that are certainly more vulnerable to coming down when they get loaded up with ice and freezing rain and so forth. Not as strong. Roots certainly are not there. So, yeah, that's something to watch out for. But it'll be a big mess. But I was going to say, on my way back yesterday from Biloxi, traveling north on 49, there were a bunch of the big electricity utility provider bucket trucks headed this way. They're getting staged, right? Getting positioned.
Which is another big difference between now and 30 years ago.
Totally agree. And a lot of that,
if you had any pre-staging, it was local power companies pre-staging away from the warehouse or in a certain neighborhood that was going to be really hard to get to. Now you got trucks from 14 different states.
Yeah. So I got to, of course, invoke a little shameless plug here. Guess what also contributes to that preparation, that organization? Data centers. You know it's true because every one of those linemen, those workers, those trucks, they're outfitted with all sorts of technology that is all powered by the cloud, which is all housed in data centers. So that's a huge benefit.
Not to mention their home office, booking hotel rooms online 100%. For them to stay in while they're staged. And,
yeah, it's just made our life way more efficient. And the other thing is, the old days, you had a power outage. You not only had to call, but if you wanted to just sort of track the ETA, that was a nightmare. You couldn't get that information. All that's widely available and pretty accurate. Certainly where we live here with respect to Entergy, I can't speak for the other electricity providers in the state, TVA and Mississippi Power, but they have pretty much all have adopted this sort of technology, and they can actually detect those before we even know often. And so we've been doing that in the IT world forever. Well, we detected that and fixed it. Oh, really? We didn't know. Right. That's the whole purpose here. So we don't want you to have to worry about that. So good stuff. On the C Spire text line, let's see here. Legalized gambling and the lottery is nothing more than a tax on stupid poor people. Totally disagree with that. Everyone should be free, in my view, if they would like. It's voluntary to play the games. And I believe that there are a lot more people that mismanage, shall we say, Rhino? That's kind of a nice word to use, their household finances with or without the lottery and sports gaming, right? So I encountered that objection a lot, including from members of our legislature, by the way, that oppose the lottery, mostly on the Democrat side, which is interesting because there was a longtime Democrat that sponsored the bill, authored the bill, the Alice G. Clark Lottery Act, and was a huge proponent of it for years. On the Senate side, I think I've mentioned before that Senator Hobb Bryan, he vehemently opposes it and really gave me the business in my confirmation hearing there to serve on the board. But my thoughts are, okay, well, if they don't spend their money that way, if they're being irresponsible, right? So you're not taking care of your bills, your children, your household affairs, whatever the case may be, but you're going and spending money on gaming. Okay, if it wasn't gaming, you probably wasted on something else. That's why you're kind of in that condition and situation. So I don't believe it's government's responsibility to dictate to people how they spend their money in their households, even when it is being mismanaged. I don't support that sort of government intervention. And that's really what this is. It's totally voluntary. I think people would also be surprised to know there are people who are even more affluent that also play these games and enjoy, especially sports betting, right? That is not just kind of limited and mostly played by
how
poor
many
people.
headlines has Mattress Mac made with his gigantic bets?
Totally.
And that dude's loaded.
Yeah. By
the
the
only way
way,
he could afford to make $14-15 million bets.
That's totally true. And a brilliant marketing strategy, honestly, on his part, because we're sitting here talking about it in Mississippi as an example. We're going to step aside for a break. We're in hour one. We got the final segment coming back of Middays today. Caleb Sailors, Multimedia Journalist with SuperTalk at 11:20. And then the Hurricane Hunters at 12:05.
Now back to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Everybody cash and let the good time roll.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Well studio. So we were talking about the price of natural gas, which has just spiked tremendously this week. 63%, I think, is what you reported, Rhino. I'd heard the 60% figure, so wasn't wrong about that. And so on the C Spire text line, that's a good question. Is that not price gouging on the natural gas company's part? It's not. The price of natural gas is actually determined by global trading of that commodity. It's the same thing with oil. It's not like the oil companies go set the price other than in their use of it, demand for it, and production of it. I mean, they do dictate the demand to some extent and the supply, but more on the supply side. But that does, of course, factor into it. But it's a globally traded commodity. Joe Biden and the Democrats have never been able to understand that. And the evidence of that is when he said, you just go out to the gas pump there and lower the price. Remember that idiotic recommendation that Bill from Saltillo asked that question. And so it turns out that if I can find it here, a couple of somebody else. Yeah, Patrick from Tennessee says, I work for TVA. All utilities purchase natural gas in anticipation of the storm, driving up the price, creating shortages, as you've already said. Natural gas and nuclear are carrying the majority of the load these days, and natural gas is going to be increasingly relied upon in the near and far future. I totally agree, Patrick, and I think to your point there, it's because of this relatively new technology that allows gas-powered turbines to produce electricity. So that's become a very common approach used by, in architecture, used by utility companies that produce electricity to use natural gas as the source in the plants that have these giant turbines that generate electricity. So it's essentially converting, Rhino, natural gas to electricity is really what you're doing through the turbines and all the other processing in the central infrastructure, and then transmitting it over power lines into your house. I mean, that's
the dirty little secret of power generation that seemingly too many in the population don't understand. Is just about every way you make power is you're spinning something real fast.
That's a good point.
Something has magnets on it.
That's a good point. Hey, Precious.
Whether it's nuclear, where you got the magic rocks, boiling water, the boiling water makes steam, the steam turns something.
Yeah.
Whether it's Hoover Dam, you got a big bunch of water flowing through the pipes to turn something.
Yeah.
Natural gas, you got the turbine turning something. Like it's all it is.
Yeah, you're right. It's the magic of movement that creates energy. We're just converting that movement to another form of energy. So you remember one of the stories I had reported on, it's been about a year, was some company up in the Northeast. I can't remember the name of the company, but they figured out a way to harness the energy produced from an elevator going up and down and transfer that into electricity. So it's literally collecting the energy, harvesting the energy from that movement, as you point out, and just converting that into an electrical charge. That's brilliant. So what it does is it stores it in batteries. The elevators go up and down. They transmit that to the batteries. The batteries are connected in along with the traditional power grid to power the buildings. Now, I have a theory that in 20 years or so, with all the advances in materials and so forth, you're going to see buildings and even residences constructed that will rely on the power grid as a secondary source of electricity. That the primary source will come from all the materials and all this other novel technology such as elevators going up and down. It doesn't replace all of it. It augments it. So it could be a situation where at your house you've got some power coming from the grid and some's coming from the windows that are being installed that can harvest the sunlight and create electricity. Masonry, roofing tiles. There's all sorts of technology. You've seen all this being developed right now. I may be wrong on my estimate of when that becomes practical and in its implementation, but I think it's coming. Not only do I, the power companies know this too. They're planning for this. It's the absolute truth. They're planning for this, but it's interesting. It's just human innovation once again. Fox News, SuperTalk News coming your way right now, top of the hour, 2 hours of middays afterwards. Stay with us.
Everybody's doing the mess around.
Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays, live from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday, y'all.
The Friday before the, what'd you call it, the Fern, right?
Oh, yeah, Winter Storm Fern.
Okay. Winter Storm Fern is coming our way.
It's the Snowmageddon and the Ice Apocalypse, better known as Fern.
Oh, my gosh. Man, oh, man.
And we did have a slight correction on the C Spire text line.
Okay.
I was talking about power generation, and it's basically spinning things with magnets.
Yep.
And from the 601, except for solar, which, yes, that's technically true.
That's right.
Solar is photon absorption and electron excitation.
Yep.
Which in simpler terms is you're basically taking the power of the sun's rays and knocking an electron off and sending it down the line.
Yep.
You also have piezoelectric generation, which is when you squeeze certain materials like quartz. That's how you have quartz movement in a watch. That's the little electrical impulses of squeezing that rock keeps time. Both of those are technically power generation, but scaling those up at the same level you can with nuclear and natural gas, it's difficult.
Yeah, they don't scale well. Absolutely. On the C Spire text line, Ricky in Aberdeen says, there won't be nearly as many power companies from surrounding states to help us this time because they're getting hit also. Yeah, you're right, Ricky. I mean, typically that is the case when we have the hurricane or tornado, those kinds of storms that are more isolated in nature. This thing's so dang widespread. You're right. There are not a lot of people that are available to help out. But as that line continues to move north, you kind of believe that there are more of those crews that are based south of that with the various companies that will travel north. And I think that's what I was seeing yesterday, coming from the coast, headed this way. So, yeah, you're right. It's going to be more constraint on the resources. Talking about the sports betting earlier, we had Joe Maloney, president of Sports Betting Alliance, on with us in the last hour, and Rhino found at least 3 bills in the House that would create mobile sports betting, allow mobile sports betting outside of the confines of a casino property, which is present law. And I'm going to have Rhino explain to you the difference between at least 2 of those here in a second. But on the C Spire text line, I always told my kids, don't get your wants and needs confused. And that was in response to someone who said, which is, right, that's the refrain we've been hearing for decades, right? Yeah, this lottery is just a tax on the poor. And I remember when I was going through my hearing in front of the Senate Finance Committee for being appointed to the lottery board, and Senator Hobb Bryan got all incensed because we were going to actually spend money on advertising to promote the games. to entice people to play. And he got mad because I happened to read the statement in the bill, the law at that point itself, which said that the purpose of the Mississippi Lottery Corporation is to maximize revenues to the state. And he just got mad about that. I said, well, do you think it's to minimize revenues? But he got mad because you're going to spend money on advertising? Right, because the law dictates to us to maximize revenues. That's one of the ways we're going to achieve that. Did I have to get into the second order thinking here for this rather
either
senior?
That man is completely incapable of it, or he believes all of his constituents are stupid enough to buy the BS he spews.
Unbelievable. So I did research on the break there, North Carolina. 'Cause you remember how blown away we were after it announced at the massive amount of revenue that was created, like in the first month. So it turns out that since it was the bill there was enacted March 2024, that it has produced about $180 million in taxes for the state of North Carolina. Now, by the way, that was through September, the article I found. So it's clearly averaging about $12 million a month of revenue to the state, right? So you just heard Joe say it's $10 billion a year nationwide revenue to the states, not revenue produced from the betting activity, the actual residual revenue, the taxes that the state receives for the activity. So North Carolina is what, 6 million people, 7 million people? It's certainly a bigger state than Mississippi, but if you extrapolate it,
just over 11 million.
Okay, so it's much bigger. My apologies there. I guess the Charlotte area in particular is a pretty big metro area. And, of course, you got Research Triangle Park, RTP as well. The Raleigh-Durham area, that's very heavily populated.
They are currently the 9th most populous state, and the future outlook has them rising as high as 7th.
A lot of people moving into North Carolina. So you don't think about that. Okay, so if you just extrapolate it and say we generated a third of that, right? So a third, $50-60 million bucks a year? I think whenever I saw Representative Uri present the bill 2 years ago, they were estimating 20. Okay. Now, the taxation structure may be different as well. I don't really know between the proposed legislation here in Mississippi and what North Carolina has in place today. But it's more than nothing. I mean, you got to at least say that. And the contention and the objections that are raised by the Democrats against mobile sports betting, they don't like the idea that the bill, and I haven't looked at the current bills, would allow the sports betting platforms to establish business relationships with the casino of their choosing. The bill does require, unless, Rhino, they've changed that, unless the proposed legislation this year is different. In the past, it has required the sports betting platforms to work directly with, on a formal basis, a casino, and so it's the casino that actually receives the revenue and pays the taxes, and they have some business relationship where they're sharing in the revenue and profit from the activity. So, but we'll see where that goes. I certainly support it. I think it would be a good deal, and just as Joe said, just as you know, and everybody out there listening, you got to know, people are doing this now in the state of Mississippi, and we're not getting squat for it. So we might as well make a little money at it, is the way I see it. So, yeah, on the C Spire text line again, I always told my kids, don't get your wants and needs confused. That just completely makes sense to me. And again, it is incumbent upon us as parents when we raise our kids to raise them to be responsible with their household finances. Of course, the problem is we just have so many households where that environment does not exist. It's not conducive to that, and that's the fundamental core underlying problem. Tim and McGee says he's incapable of the online betting and lieutenant governor won't allow to ever come up before the Senate. It does seem that he's an opponent, and of course, Senator David Blunt, Democrat from South Jackson, he chairs the Senate Gaming Committee, and yes, that's when it has encountered the legislation to some resistance, as we say, and hasn't gone very far. Jerry in Waynesboro says, my daughter that lives and teaches in North Dakota said, stop whining. This is what she woke up to this morning. He sent us a screenshot of the weather. Looks like that's a negative 28 degrees at 9 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, with a wind chill.
With a wind chill, yeah.
Negative 47 degrees.
Oh, my gosh. That's not fit for man or beast, right, as they say.
That's up where they had the exploding trees warning.
Exploding trees?
Yeah, the temperature dropped so quickly that the trees in the northern plains and the northern Midwest, like North Dakota, Michigan, that whole area of the country, the trees didn't have time to adjust to the rapidly dropping temperatures, and some trees can, with the sap freezing in the veins of the trees, explode.
Oh, gosh. Well, that makes sense. Just as your pipes would, right, with the liquid in it.
Same exact
Same
principle.
deal, yeah. So we got a break right here, but tell the folks, if we can, real quick, the difference between those two bills that we saw the Casey Uri file, mainly about how the money would be allocated.
Yeah, House Bill 1527 and House Bill 1581 would both legalize mobile sports wagering and amend related gaming laws. But House Bill 1581 also includes some carve-outs for if you owe child support, that will immediately go to the recipient of the child support instead of you getting your winnings. And it also deals a little bit with tideland funds for coastal preservation.
Okay. And one of them would send the money to PERS, right? Did you
Both
say
of
that?
them actually send the proceeds to PERS.
Okay, gotcha. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio. It's Caleb Sailors from the news department.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert, here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. With us now is Caleb Sailors, Multimedia Journalist of SuperTalk Mississippi News. All right, what's happening there, Caleb?
A lot of weather.
Yeah.
A lot of weather happening. We're expected to be happening. I know right now here in central Mississippi, it's kind of like a balmy 55 degrees outside, nothing crazy. But tonight is when it's expected to start getting a little iffy in the northern part of Mississippi, which is at an extreme risk of severe weather hitting around 6 p.m. this evening, moving into the nighttime portion. I know the forecast has shown that the winter storm that's coming has kind of shifted north a little bit, meaning the central part of the state probably won't get hit so badly, and the southern part of the state and the Pine Belt areas are not. It looks like they're going to be fine this weekend. Maybe a little rain, but I don't see anything crazy happening there. But for those in the northern part of the state who are expected to be hit the hardest, so we're expecting some freezing rain, possibly some sleet, very little snow, but this could lead to roads icing over or dangerous conditions and whatnot, and power outages too, with lines getting ice on them. It's going to be a nightmare for our linemen. So there's some things that Mississippians are being urged to kind of be prepared for. And I know the governor has issued a state of emergency, and they've mobilized resources, stuff to cover roofs for potential leaks or blankets, etc., to counties that have requested them. MEMA, and under the governor's guidance, has delivered those to these counties, especially in the northern parts of the state. So there are resources available to those who need them. But just a little word of advice, though, if you are in impacted area or an area that's expected to be impacted, go ahead and fill up your car with gas. I know the gas stations up in North Mississippi have been insane. I've got buddies in DeSoto County, and they've sent me pictures from their gas stations. They're 3-4 cars deep pretty much at all times, but it's worth the wait. Gas up your car because you could use it as a heating source in the event of a power outage or as a way to charge your phone. Speaking of phones, if you do end up running out of juice on your phone, make sure to have a battery-powered radio. It's specifically tuned to SuperTalk, your local SuperTalk station. I'm kidding, but have your radio on, and in the event that you do lose power and you need weather updates, the National Weather Service does provide updates. And here at SuperTalk, our news team will be here this weekend in the station giving updates periodically as well. So we'll keep you up to speed on what's happening weather-wise. And we've got some school closures that have happened. I know Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and some other schools have altered their schedules. We've got a running list there at supertalk.fm. So if you need to see if your school, community, college, local area is having any kind of schedule changes education-wise or extracurricular activities-wise, you can find that on our website. And we got some basketball games moved, Gerard, this weekend. And so if you are in North Mississippi or in an area that's kind of impacted, don't drive if you don't have to. If you absolutely have to, so be it. I know MDOT crews have been prepping and making sure the roads will be safe for the major roadways will be safe for Mississippians to travel. But if you don't have to and you're going to bundle up, you got plenty of basketball to watch tomorrow morning. Ole Miss and Mississippi State have both moved their games up. Ole Miss will be playing in Rupp Arena at Kentucky tomorrow. The game was originally scheduled for 11 a.m. It's been moved up to 10 a.m., so a little early game, morning action on the hardwood for the Rebels. The Rebels had won 3 in a row, had their winning streak snapped against Auburn on Tuesday night, so looking to get back in the win column. So that one will tip off at 10 on the road, of course. Mississippi State is hosting Vanderbilt, number 15 in the country, Commodores, tomorrow at the Humphrey Coliseum. The game was originally scheduled to tip off at 5 p.m., so a little later game, but it's been moved up. I get up and back mixed up, Gerard. I'm not good with the times. It's been moved up to 11 o'clock in the morning. And the cool thing is, if you're in the Starkville area and road conditions are safe for you to drive, admission is free. They're offering free admission to the game tomorrow. So Mississippi State is also hoping that a lot of people show up because they'll need fan support. The Bulldogs have lost 4 straight games. Wednesday night got beat by 20 at Texas A&M and looking to get things right. Chris Jans and company are looking to get things right. So if you're a Bulldog fan and you're in the area and don't have anything to do tomorrow morning and it's safe for you to drive, head out to Humphrey Coliseum. Free admission.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much where we are weather-wise. Nothing crazy right now, but the wintry weather is expected to start hitting the northern part of the state and kind of moving south Saturday, and we'll start to get really, really, really cold temperatures, so something to keep an eye out there, especially for if you're going to drive over bridges and such, because, they ice before the road. The signs tell us that. Sometimes we don't read them. We just kind of ignore them, but that is something important to note.
Yeah. It's just really got everybody all focused on that. It's affecting every aspect of life here in the Magnolia State for sure. And I guess until this thing is over, we won't know. So,
and one thing Mississippians don't do is we don't handle severe weather well at all. I remember the ice storm in 2021, Gerard, when the grocery store looked like a third world country. Everything was depleted for the most part, and then the stuff that was still in existence in the grocery store was scattered everywhere. I remember it was like Armageddon at my local Kroger. And so we're hoping that's not the case this time around, that people are already prepared. But I don't think it will be as bad as that 2021 ice storm.
Yeah. Well, let's hope not, because it sure does just kind of slow everything down. And the prospect of losing power is certainly, that's not any fun as well, but that looks like that's a real possibility for a good bit of the state.
Right, and the governor has assured Mississippians, especially those in the northern part of the state, that he's been in contact with the utility companies. I know Haley Fisackerly with Energy has been on our programs this week talking about the potential for outages, but the utility companies have been in contact with the governor, and they've they're collaborating to make sure that if there are any outages, which are inevitable pretty much at this point, that they'll be restored as quickly as possible, that people won't have to worry about going multiple days without power, hopefully not multiple hours without power, but that their power will be restored as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So we got the hurricane hunters coming on here in about 45 minutes, and they're scheduled to actually fly into this winter storm. We're going to get a report from Lieutenant Colonel Sean Cross on that. I don't know that I've ever heard about hurricane hunters flying into a winter storm.
Yeah, I haven't either. That's cool. I will be tuned in.
Yeah. So down there in the Capitol, a lot of stuff going on, of course, and we were just talking about the possibility of mobile sports betting legislation being enacted. Of course, you got HB2 that's down there in the Senate, and I was informed not too long ago by someone that keeps up with this stuff that Senator DeBar, the Senate Education Chairman, was preparing to just kill the bill outright, but now evidently he is interested in some of the provision. That's the word from my contact here.
And that's one of the interesting deals about a big omnibus bill is that, when it was sent to the Senate, there was kind of an expectation that, one, the Senate was not going to be for universal school choice. The Senate was not. Senator DeBar said there was no appetite for that. And the Lieutenant Governor has had that same stance, too. But there are elements of it, allowing retired teachers to return to the classroom without their PERS benefits being penalized. I know that there was an appetite for that on both sides. Some of the other provisions there. I could see where the Senate would say, hey, let's amend these pieces right here. Okay, universal portability and public money going to private schools. Yeah, we're not going to do that. I could see that happening, but them saying, assistant teachers should get a raise. Yes, absolutely. We should do this with allowing educators to return to the classroom without being penalized. So that makes sense. I think that was part of the reason why House Bill 2 was sent in that form, so that it would kind of start a conversation there rather than just be passed outright. I know that the House Speaker wasn't expecting that legislation just to cruise right through the Senate and get sent to the governor's desk as is. I didn't think that would be the case. But the fact that there's a conversation now shows that maybe they are working toward a compromise.
Well, and it could have been the strategy on the part of the Speaker was to include lots of things that they probably would support in that legislation to keep it alive.
Right.
So, but you got to think that given the sentiment and the position expressed by Senator DeBar, who made it very clear that he would not support the use of the diversion of monies from public schools to private schools in a education savings account scenario. The Magnolia student account specifically would permit that. He is not going to support that, and his support for portability is pretty watered down as well. So pretty limited.
Yeah, and another provision, too, is the Tim Tebow Act that would allow homeschoolers to play in public school leagues. I see an appetite for that in both the House and the Senate.
I do, too.
But the MHSAA has come out against it.
They're against it. That's right. So that could cause some confrontation, shall we say.
The gloves to come off.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. Caleb Sailors, everyone, multimedia journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News. We're stepping aside for a break in the Element Wealth studio. We'll be right back.
From the Seabrook.com.
Days with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Let's go.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are live in the Element Wealth studio on the C-Spire text line. Ben from Madison says, glad to see Representative Sam Creekmore move his ibogaine out of the House. Only one no vote. Yeah, that's been attempted in the past, has it not, Rhino? So it looks like we're making a little more progress there. I agree, Ben. What else we got here? Bob in Pontotoc says something else, G-Man. Back in 94, I was working for the electric company here in Pontotoc, and what I experienced was ice on the lines will break them when there's enough frozen ice. I'm sure, right? You have enough weight, and it just will snap them off of their attachments onto the poles themselves.
Or it'll snap the pole.
You pull the pole down, right? Yeah.
Or the arm.
Yeah, absolutely. All kinds. And the insulator there on top of it. So, yeah. Well, I'm hoping and praying it's not that, what we experienced in 94. That was a big old mess that had us all shut down for a while, and it just is not any fun, honestly. There's no other way to put it. So, the issue of school choice, of course, continues to be a very high-profile and controversial topic down there in the Mississippi State Capitol. But the Democrats, Rhino, they're having a feast on this, are they not, with the Republicans being divided? And it seems like every day it's a new press release coming from the Democrats. And so yesterday, I got this one from the Mississippi Democratic Party. They condemn HB 2, that's the sweeping school choice measure that just passed the House by one vote. It has been transmitted in accordance with the Rhino-anointed procession down to the Senate. It's a big one for that one, right? I mean, all the bells and whistles we got, all the grandeur and splendor for that particular bill. You got to do that when it passes by one vote. It warrants such an extensive, elaborate procession. The Democratic Party says HB 2 is welfare for the wealthy. Oh, geez. School voucher scheme. And so this is what they point out. So there's a lot of confusion, I'll put it that way, about who would qualify for these Magnolia student accounts. That's what they're called. And the way the bill is structured, in year one, there would be 12,500 such accounts, half of those available to existing enrolled students in public schools. They would apply, and then they are prioritized. First, to those whose household income is 100% or less of the median income in the area. And then if there are accounts left over, it moves up to 200% or less. And if there are accounts left over of all the applicants, to 300% and less. So it's prioritizing 100% and below, 200% below, then 300%. And then over that, there's a lottery that is used to award the accounts. So the Democrats point out that in counties such as Holmes, this first priority applies to families earning up to $23,000 annually, and that in Madison County, the most affluent county in terms of household income in the state, priority one extends to families earning up to $79,000. So they make the point that by using the income, the median household income in an area, they find that to create a disparity. And they're comparing homes which, Rhino, is either at the bottom of the 82 counties in household income or it got a good chance of being right. So it's always been one of the most economically low and just economically poor counties, if you will. So the income disparities become even more striking at the higher priority levels, the Democrats say, under priority 3, which goes to 300%. That's $237,000 in Madison County. And, of course, in Holmes County, that would be $69,000. So the Mississippi Democratic Party, Chairman Sheck Taylor, says this is welfare for the wealthy, disguised as help for working families. HB 2 was sold to Mississippians as a lifeline for low-income children. So this is what's missing in this argument, though, Rhino, is that the median income is the exact midpoint of all the households in the state the area in terms of income. So in Holmes County, which he's pointing out, it's half the households in Holmes County. In Madison County, it's half the households in Madison County. What? Why didn't he get that?
I mean, you've heard how Democrats talk. You can't expect them to remember what median means.
Oh, my gosh. The point is, this is a ruse. This comparison here, because it's still half. So the fact that 23...
They're either too stupid to hold public office, or they believe their constituents are dumb enough to buy their BS.
And so here's the point. Let's just say that you get only those two counties. You got a very low, maybe the lowest. I'm not sure. I hadn't looked at it lately. I used to have a map that showed the median household income in all 82 states. I got that somewhere on my phone. But in the meantime, Holmes, no doubt, which is borders Madison County. A stark contrast. $23,000 median income, $79,000. Let's just say that the applications are received by the Department of Education, who then doles these out. You got applications from Madison, applications from Holmes. So the fact that half in Holmes qualify and half in Madison qualify, I don't think they're getting how that works. I don't. You see what I'm saying here, though, don't you? Right? It's not like saying, oh, well, more of those, an outsized number, a disproportionate number, are going to the county with the higher income. No, it's not how it works. That's the point they're trying to make. And that riles up their base. Oh, my gosh, you're giving all these breaks to the wealthy people. And then the other thing is that he fails to mention, who's getting all the other dang benefits that come down from the state and the federal government, right? Because the vast majority of these people in Madison County don't qualify, given that household income. Now, that's when you get in to the mean. That's a different calculation. That would make sense, but it's not. It's median, intentionally. So the design is half the households in the county qualify. I don't think they get this. I really don't. Don't want you to get. That's what bothers me, is they want to keep their people in the dark and try to score political points. And that's ridiculous in my view. And it's what people, I think, detest about politics, because they're taking advantage. They're abusing their bully pulpit to propagate information that's just flat out misleading at a minimum. I'm not going to call it a lie, because this isn't a lie. It's just grossly misleading. And that's just wrong, in my view. You may call it a lie.
I mean, in order to call it a lie, we have to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they can comprehend and understand what they're talking about. And when the average Democrat opens their mouth and starts flapping their gums, it's pretty evident they don't know jack diddly squat about 95% of the crap they talk about.
I mean, I just feel like that's happening here, and it's grossly misleading. And they're also advancing a similar narrative on the Trump scholarship accounts that came out of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that our governor, Tate Reeves, just opted Mississippi into. And there's this gross misunderstanding that people who have their kids in private schools are going to start getting a $1,700 tax credit from the federal government. That's not what the program is. It's for people like me that might write a check, and I would, by the way. I intend to, into one of those scholarship granting organizations. My kids are in their 30s. I don't have anybody at private school. I will get a credit. I'm getting a credit for helping somebody else's kid. Is that bad?
When Democrats can't skim something off the top, it's got to be bad.
It's so frustrating. But I can tell you what we're going to do here is we're going to tell you the truth. Simple as that. And that's the dang truth. But that you've seen this narrative going around, oh, they're giving this credit to the rich people that have their kids in private school. No, it works. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Polyupa, Mississippi.
Are we going to do this?
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. The Cars. So on the C Spire text line, good morning. I would love to be able to help a person with their educational endeavors and get a tax write-off at the same time. Can you tell me how to do that? So, yeah, that's what we're talking about. The president and the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, also known as the Working Families Tax Cut Act, that passed on July 4th. 2025, it includes a provision that would allow taxpayers to contribute up to $1,700 to what's called a scholarship granting organization. That's going to be an organization that receives those monies. There can be more than one in a state, by the way. We're still waiting on the rules that will come from the governor, from the executive branch in Mississippi, because since this is federal law, it did not require our legislature, the way it was established and provided for in the law, in the federal law, does not require legislature to pass a bill and send it to the governor to enact. Done through executive order. The governor opts into the program, and then more information is forthcoming about the rules around the scholarship granting organizations, also known as SGOs. And so at that point, when those rules are established and those organizations form up and are created, quite sure, Rhino, they will be promoting that program. And
yeah, but you likely won't see any of that until summer or fall, because the credit doesn't go into effect until January 1, 2027.
Correct. So you get the SGOs up and running, and then you can make those contributions, but not until 27. Anything you do before then is not going to receive. Well, the program won't be in place then. The SGOs won't accept money, I wouldn't think, until then, because no credit's available.
Which is different than the quote-unquote Trump accounts.
That's right.
For children born during a certain period of time, and you can seed it with up to $2,500.
Yeah, outsiders can contribute that much. $1,000 from the federal government.
July 4th.
Yeah, I actually thought it was retroactive to January 1st, 2025.
You can't make contributions until July 4th, I believe.
I think that's right.
The time period was the time period for the kids to be born was retroactive.
That's right, to January 25. Yeah, one-time $1,000 contribution would be placed in an account. You have to apply for it. There's a process for it. No withdrawals until age 18, and then at that point, there's a limit on what those withdrawals can be used for. But there's also the opportunity, as you indicate, to contribute more. Parents, employers, or charities can add funds up to $5,000 a year, with employer contributions potentially pre-tax. So really no tax benefits of that. It's about just putting these accounts together. You get the $1,000 seed money, if you will, and then as it produces income, because it's invested, and there's limitations around how those funds can be invested until age 18. The gain on those investments is not taxable during that period of time. When they start withdrawing, it kind of works like a 401k plan. You don't pay any taxes on the gain in your 401k plan. It's just a paper gain, if you will, an unrealized gain. But when you start withdrawing the money, you would have to pay taxes on it then, and there's some...
Unless it's for education, housing. Healthcare.
That's right. If you're using it on those targets, then no taxes on it. It's tax-free. If you use it for other purposes, then you're going to have to pay some taxes on it. So, yeah, that's how that works. But when that's up and running, to the person on our text line, the Trump accounts we're talking about for private education scholarships, that it begins in 2027. And by the way, you know why it begins in 2027? To make all the numbers fit within those reconciliation rules, so the bill in the Senate would not require the 60-vote filibuster-proof vote. So you have to play. It's just like the overtime, the tips, the SALT deduction, the deductibility of automobile interest. All of those provisions expire at the end of 28. Same deal. It's all about making the math work so that those bills can pass under reconciliation, not requiring the 60 votes to overcome the filibuster in the Senate. Something I got to get in here real quick. This argument about I don't want to see public money going to the private schools. You know, there's a child and dependent care tax credit. Tax credit, dollar for dollar, federal tax credit. Guess what? You spend that money on private daycare, the taxpayers pay for it. Is that not diverting public money to a private entity for daycare services? How's that different? Fox News, SuperTalk News, and then the Hurricane Hunters. Stay with us.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord. Haven't been home in a year or more. I hope she holds on a little longer.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are live in the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday, y'all.
We welcome now Lieutenant Colonel Sean Cross. He's with the Hurricane Hunters. Lieutenant Colonel, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, glad to be here as always, Gerard. Thanks for having us on.
You bet. So tell us what's going on here. You guys are going to be flying into this winter storm is what we understand.
Well, we won't quite be in the storm environment, the swath that it's going to take over land. Our job, as always, is to remain over water. That's where we extract data from basically the big moisture pool, the Gulf. So we had a flight scheduled for today. It did cancel, but we're waiting on the pod to come out to see what happens for tomorrow's flights. And what the crews will do is they'll take off out of Keesler Air Force Base. They'll fly out to about an altitude of about 30,100 feet, so just above 30,000 feet. And they'll drop signs at predetermined points that the National Hurricane Center, the National Weather Service has predetermined for their research data points. So they'll do that, and as the sign is falling through the atmosphere, it'll collect data just like it does if we're out in a hurricane environment, temperature, pressure, winds, humidity, and they'll send all of that information back to the plane. And then we'll send that stuff to those guys real time, and they'll plug it into their model building to what they're looking at now for these winter storms is, how much snowfall are we going to have in certain parts of the country. So by extracting data from the Gulf moisture, they can predict how much snowfall we're going to have over land. It's really incredible work that they do.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's interesting because initially I was thinking, well, what value would that be in the forecasting process? But you just educated us there. So a lot of those same data points can be used in forecasting winter storms just the way they can with big hurricanes, right?
Absolutely. So we started our winter storm season November 1st, and that's when it begins every year. And it actually overlaps a little bit with hurricane season by 30 days. But the priority during the tropical season is by far hurricane flights. But, they asked us to fly some stuff earlier this year. We weren't able to because we had a busy season, so we were still trying to put that away. And so now what we're doing is we're out on the West Coast actually flying atmospheric river storms. So these are giant water vapor tubes that originate around the Hawaiian Islands. They're nicknamed the Pineapple Express. They float in the atmosphere at about 10 to 12,000 feet high. They're a couple thousand miles long by a few hundred miles wide. And what it is, it's a large vapor tube of moisture. It's actually absorbing moisture from the Pacific Ocean. It's like a giant sponge. As it gets over land, it interacts with cooler temperatures as it goes up into a higher altitude, hits the Sierra Nevadas, and then, it turns to snow. What happens in the spring? It melts, it comes downhill, you start looking at mudslides and things like that. We're very spoiled here in the Southeast, Gerard. We have all the water we need to drink. Out west, water management is crucial. So that's why we're doing this work off the West Coast right now, because if the water management officials can predict, hey, how much rain is coming from a huge atmospheric river event, should we shed water early from the dams and the reservoirs, or should we hold back if it's going to be a dry season? So it's really incredible work that we're doing out on the West Coast right now.
Yeah, that is fascinating because as you indicate, management and in particular the timing of those actions with respect to water resources is critical. And of course, the West has experienced a prolonged drought period. They got a lot of population. They've been managing this problem for some time. Heck, Lieutenant Colonel, when I lived in California, working in Southern California in Kern County, which is the county that has, I think, more agriculture than any other county in the United States, they were fed by the California Aqueduct, which, of course, as you know, runs north and south there, traverses the state, takes all the water, mainly from the snow in the northern part of the state, and sends it south to where it's dry a lot. But that was a problem back then. I mean, they were talking about it 40-something years ago, managing that problem. But with all this new technology, hopefully that makes them better and more efficient in optimizing those precious water resources.
Absolutely. Look, I've been flying this mission for 26 years now, and we've learned a lot over the decades. We used to go out and fly these huge winter storm tracks, over the Pacific Ocean, and we were actually kind of missing the target area. And a very, very smart gentleman, Dr. Ralph, down at Scripps University in San Diego said, hey, this is great work that y'all are doing, but we actually need y'all to get a little bit closer to the atmospheric river. So between the hurricane hunters here at the Keesler Air Force Base, Air Force Reserve, and the guys at NOAA and stuff like that, we now send aircraft simultaneously and we target the atmospheric river.
Okay.
It's like putting bombs on target, and we're dropping signs, and we're dropping hundreds of them during the season.
Wow.
So the research it's become a lot tighter, and it's providing a really good product to the scientists at NCEP and things like that. So they're just making a much better prediction as far as water management goes on the West Coast. So, look, the West Coast didn't know who the hurricane hunters are, but they know who we are now.
That's awesome.
This is their tropical event on the West Coast.
That's incredible.
We're gaining popularity out there.
That's just fascinating. All right, so Lieutenant Colonel, are you using the same aircraft and the same configuration in flying over these winter storms as you would in a hurricane?
Yes, sir. It's completely the same. There's no difference. The only thing is we're flying at a higher altitude to extract data, from that millibar level that the scientists are looking for. That's the only thing. So we're up at 30,000 in winter storms. During a hurricane, we're down at 10,000 feet, punching right through the belly of the beast.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're right. You're having to fly through the storm, I guess, get into it and then into the eye and collecting all this data, using all the sophisticated technology. But in this case, you're trying to get above it. Is that because, Lieutenant Colonel, you're collecting a different set of data in this case, or that's where you need to be to get the same data?
That it's the same amount. It's the same type of data. It's at a higher millibar level. That's what the scientists want the data extracted from in the atmosphere. That's all it is. There's really no difference. Everything is completely the same.
Okay.
And we're just flying right out a ridge line right in front of this storm. It's actually, we're not in front of the storm. The storm's going to be over land. We're well south.
Yeah.
They just want to know what's going on above from the water that's being extracted from
that's
the Gulf
incredible.
of Mexico.
I see.
As it's pulled pulled north, and I said Gulf of Mexico,
Gulf
of America. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is that's a factor that I guess I hadn't thought about, but right, that's where the moisture comes from. Same with the hurricanes, right? As they're moving across the water, it's all about what those pressures and those data points look like in predicting the amount of water the hurricane's going to suck up and then dump on land when it moves through. Similar situation here, right, with respect to the snow, ice, what have you, precipitation in general.
You're very correct. The fuel source for a hurricane is warm water. That's the fuel tank. And whenever a storm comes into the Gulf, I talk all around the Gulf Coast, all across the Southeast about our mission and history of it. And I say, look, the fuel tank is there and it's ready. Just like for Katrina, the Gulf, she opened her arms up to Katrina, and Katrina came right in south of Miami, and the fuel tank was full. She had all she needed to develop. So that's why we're getting our data points from over water, so the scientists can do a much better job for everybody out there. It's really fascinating work flown by the men and women of the Air Force Reserve.
It is totally unbelievable, and just a testament to their capability, their skills, but this incredible technology that's been developed in our country as well in the right hands that's serving society here. That's really what you're doing. You told us, Lieutenant Colonel, you're able to transmit this data real time to the forecasters. Is that right? Building the models.
That is correct. Yes, sir. So we collect the data, and then the weather officer, the trained meteorologist that's on board the aircraft, they're an Air Force officer, they will create what's called a vortex data message, and then they will send that data with all of that drop sign data real time up to the satellites in space down to the National Hurricane Center in Miami, and they plug it all into those supercomputers that are down there, and that's how they come up with the forecast modeling. And then as soon as they're done, it's released on the World Wide Web for the rest of the world to go out there and see and study, and you'll see all these different models that are around the world, different entities, and some of them will use our data. We don't work for them, but it's free information that we provide.
That is so cool. So the reality is, by having that data and being more accurate in the forecasting and predictions and distributing that out really across the world, it's got to be a good feeling for your team, Lieutenant Colonel, because you're saving lives. You're preventing lots of the other inconveniences, and that's a nice way of putting it, that these storms can cause, because you got more information and you're ready to react, respond, and address whatever happens.
That is true, and that is the primary thing and result of this mission is we're saving lives. We're helping save money, especially when you start talking about evacuation calls. If the emergency management officials can make the decision to only evacuate Harrison County down here on the coast instead of Hancock, Harrison, and Jackson County, it's a tremendous saving, because evacuation costs are well over $1 million per mile of evacuation calls. So if they can pinpoint who needs to get out of what areas, it's a big savings to the government.
Fantastic. I've enjoyed this, Lieutenant Colonel. You've educated us a lot. This is incredible. And, of course, good luck on the mission, and extend our thanks to the men and women of the United States Air Force that are helping us out here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on, Gerard. We always like to talk and share the mission. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Lieutenant Colonel Sean Cross, a pilot with the Hurricane Hunters. We're taking a break right now, coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
I'm here at the shop.
Attention, adoring fans!
It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
There you go, Gary and the Bird. That's from the all-hit request line. Two Hearts, Phil Collins. Tell you what, that Rhino, he aims to please. By the way, Rhino has clarified what the procession will consist of. That's the one that will be transmitting, already has, right? HB2.
Oh, yeah.
from the Mississippi House of Representatives down there to the Mississippi State Senate. He says that this is in response to Dan in Hattiesburg wanting to know the details. Rhino says these are really important bills, and therefore the bill's author has to be carried on a litter by toga-clad interns while the author holds up the bill written on a large scroll with gilded furniture like Simba from The Lion King. I can just visualize it, and we could probably AI that right now, couldn't we? And Rhino also says, I suppose the toga-wearing legislature interns could provide a soundtrack via a kazoo. I love it. I like it. Let's go. I'm getting me a kazoo. I'm going to go join them when we do this. Oh, and Dan says, don't forget the bubbles. I'm thinking like Lawrence Welk bubbles. Oh, absolutely. Oh, man. You got to have fun with it because otherwise you go loony.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what song to play on the kazoos. Do you go dark like the Imperial March, Darth Vader's theme from Star Wars, or do you keep it patriotic with Stars and Stripes Forever by Sousa?
That's good. That is awesome. Well, so I did have to make that point though, Rhino. This objection to school choice, education freedom on the basis that, and you've seen it just feels so knee-jerk to me. Oh, we can't let the public dollars go to the private schools. And the other day with Will, I was saying, what exactly is a public dollar? Do they are they marked public dollar, private dollar? The government doesn't produce dollars. That's the piece here that's missing. It all starts, and it really stays as a private dollar that we entrust to publicly elected representatives who then funnel it back out, and sometimes they skim off the top, as you know. So, and I'm not saying that's happening in our legislature, but Lord knows up there in Washington, anything is possible. Not only that, a probable. Right? That's why they stay so dang long. They can't imagine life without that. But I did have to point out that, well, if you object to so-called public dollars, I just think that's a misnomer. That's about as accurate a description as the Inflation Reduction Act, which was the dumbest name for a bill in the history of federal legislation. But you get just kind of relating it to education in general, that folks who spend money for child care and dependent care, because it doesn't have to be a child, a dependent, and there is definitions of who qualifies, but payments to daycare, nannies, babysitters, summer day camps, before after school care, care provided by a relative that's not your dependent or your child under 19, all of those expenses qualify for a dollar-for-dollar tax credit. Now, it's expenses up to $3,000 for one person that you're caring for, or $6,000 for two and above, depending on your income. So, this is essentially diverting public dollars, according to their definition, to private entities. And let's think about this. If that program didn't exist, if that tax provision didn't exist, the number of daycare facilities in this country would shrink dramatically, because a lot of people wouldn't be able to afford it without this credit. And this credit is a federal tax credit that, for a lot of people, is redistribution. It's just redistribution is what it is. From those who are paying taxes, they don't have that. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to that legislation or to that provision of our tax code. I'm just pointing out that there feels like there's a double standard here. You're okay with that, but you're not okay with the state funding allocated to a K through 12 student following that student if it goes to a private school. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, the worst thing that could ever happen is that a private school would receive these monies. But child care facilities and after-school camps do all day long. Now, it's not a voucher, but it doesn't matter. It's still less money you're paying to the government. You're diverting. You're taking money out of the fund. It's the same deal. It's the exact same deal here. Just felt like it was worth pointing that out. Gerard, do you think the bill that consolidates the junior colleges is good? I think it would be bad for Mississippi. Really not prepared to comment on that at this point. Our folks in the news department are doing some research on that and are going to write up an article that is going to delve into the details on that. We'll see where that goes. So I'm going to refrain from commenting on that until we get something more definitive. So David Madison says school choice is a no-brainer. I think that the problem I have is that so many of the objections, I think, are overblown and really without merit is where I come down. We're talking about 12,500 Magnolia student accounts at $7,000 a piece. And so, what is that, Rhino? $84 million, I think. It's about what that comes out to be. Call it 90. In a $3 billion budget. It's not like, oh my gosh, we're taking so much money away from them that they just won't be able to survive. So it's overblown. That math doesn't work. And if you look at the other states that have implemented this and the adoption rate, now, and they have total universal school choice, which costs a whole lot more money. I think in Arkansas this year it's about $377 million. So I just feel like that there's a lot of panic and a lot of hyperbole, and now we're seeing people that I guess I thought were Republicans and fully supported the president that are now balking at this $1,700 tax credit that is available to those who contribute to an organization that would then grant scholarships. And as you pointed out, that kicks off in 27. January 27 it would be available. And our governor, and I'm proud of our governor for opting into this program. I think we're the 18th or 19th state now that has. The blue states, just because they have Trump derangement syndrome, they're just not going to. And like also some of those states, and this is an issue in Mississippi, some of these states, they just don't like Trump, and they govern and they make policy on that basis. That's really sad. And they are not aligning their state's tax provisions with federal tax reform vis-a-vis overtime tips and the deductibility of automobile interest. They're just saying we're not playing. Well, in Mississippi, I've pointed this out as well. I'm still waiting for somebody in our legislature to file legislation that would align state income tax rules with federal as it relates to these new provisions that went into effect in 2025 as part of the Working Families Tax Cuts Act, because you're able to deduct the premium portion of your overtime above the line for federal tax purposes, but not for state. So I would like to see our state align with those provisions so that you can, Mississippi taxpayers can take advantage of that those new reforms. And the parents' campaign has all been out of shape about the Trump $1,700 tax credits. Of course, they also just strongly object any form of school choice. They say this law that created the tax credit, vouchers, it's not vouchers. It's not what it is. Was extremely vague and requires the Treasury Secretary to develop rules to govern the program. Okay. That's why also, Rhino, one of the reasons it doesn't go into effect until 27, besides the fact that that's the only way you can make it fit in the reconciliation rules. They say the federal rule-setting process allows for public feedback. You can see it here, blah, blah, blah. Oh, my gosh. Coming right back.
From the sea. And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
Now, on to the real part.
Dynamite! On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Way back in time, someone said try some, I tried some, now buy some, I bought some, whoa, whoa, whoa. After a while, when I had tried them, denied them, I opened my eyes and I saw you.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. Thanks for joining us today. We are wrapping up a busy week and bracing for the big storm coming through over the weekend. And I think at this point the forecast has been revised a bit. Seems like maybe not as bad for our area as originally thought, but it's dynamic and it is changing on seems like an hourly basis almost, rather frequently. By the way, we've talked a lot on this program about what I would describe as discrimination in public sector contracting. Well, there was a pretty seismic shift, you could call it, Rhino, in Virginia when Governor Glenn Youngkin was elected, a business person, comes from the private equity world. And this was in response to the crazy stuff that was going on in the schools in, it was Arlington, and what was the other district up there in Virginia? It escapes me right now, but both of those big school districts, which are mostly white, affluent liberals, honestly, is where it was kind of ground zero for all the woke nonsense going on.
Loudoun County?
I think it's Loudoun County. That's right. Loudoun County and Arlington. I think Arlington, I know, is a city, but I believe it's if I'm not mistaken, it's either a district as well, or is there a county?
Arlington County.
Okay, yeah. I thought so. So I think it was Arlington County. But, gosh, you and I think, we featured clips from some of the parents showing up at the school board meetings who, honestly, were not received very well by the school board members and wanted them to go away. And this really happened after the COVID stuff. Like, I can't believe you're teaching this crap. The parents in this country found out the garbage that was being thrust down our youngsters in our public schools. It just seems like Loudoun County is where a bunch of that crap happened. Of course, there's a very high-profile case of it was actually a
Dune address.
Yeah, that assaulted a girl right in the bathroom, something crazy like that. They relocated that person, didn't punish them, put them in another school. They went and did the same crap all over again, right? So the parents came forward. Nonetheless, Virginia was a mess and is blue to sometimes purple, mainly blue historically. And Governor Glenn Youngkin, he gets elected because he delivers the message to the parents, many of whom were Democrats, that said, we're going to cut this crap out in the schools. And one of his first executive orders, it's crazy he had to issue this. I remember reading it, and I'm paraphrasing a bit. But bottom line is, he said, a child in the public schools in Virginia can't be held and bear, is actually the term that was used, bear responsibility for actions committed in the past by people with whom they happen to share race. So bottom line is, the schools were teaching third graders, you're responsible for slavery. And Youngkin issued this executive order saying, no, you can't hang that, essentially. You can't tell these kids you're responsible for something that what occurred 100 years ago just because they happen to be of the same race as the people that committed those atrocities. Had to issue an executive order on that. So, unfortunately, people have short memories. That's where I'm going with this. And they elected Abigail Spanberger, who's a far left-wing nutcase. Honestly, she is. I thought she was moderate. She's not. So, I've talked about discrimination in procurement, including in Mississippi, mainly at the municipal level. The city of Jackson has policies right now granting preferential treatment in procurement to so-called disadvantaged populations. Which, by the way, the Supreme Court ruled, you remember, in 23, you can't say that because of somebody's race, they're disadvantaged. Well, the Democrats in Virginia have introduced a bill that discriminates against white men in government contracting. For contracts under $100,000 in the public sector, white men are explicitly barred from even being considered unless
there's nobody else.
Unless there's zero other competition. That's right. What? But that's not discrimination? That's just unbelievable. So that's
not in the twisted minds of leftists.
Gosh, dog, man. Imagine if you just inserted black men in place of the white men in this bill.
Well, that's half the problem. You can't really get in the mind of a liberal or a Democrat unless you have a sledgehammer you can hit yourself in the head with really hard. You gotta knock about 40 IQ points off to be a true blue Democrat.
That's just incredible that this is going on. It saddens me because I felt like with Youngkin in there, and in Virginia, as you know, a governor can serve, or a lieutenant governor, I believe, 2 consecutive terms. They can serve multiple terms, just not consecutive. And so, unfortunately, they got short memories, and they decided to elect this nutcase. And now they are emboldened. You got this going on. They're also wanting to decriminalize, get this, possession of child pornography, assault of a police officer. Decriminalize it. No crime. Unbelievable. Going backwards. Ben from Madison says, what do you say to people who say the money follows the students, the private schools will just increase their tuition? Is there any data one way or the other in states and their private schools that have implemented universal school choice? The data is inconclusive, Ben. I know that's crazy, but there have been lots of studies done. And some come out and say there have been no upward adjustments. Some come out and say there have, but it's been minimal. It's been minor adjustments. There hasn't been the explosion that we saw with higher ed. That was off the charts. But that was a totally different deal because you could get these gigantic loans and Pell Grants and stack all these programs together to the point where they were making money. That's right. They were literally making money, like leftover disposable income as a student because they tapped all these various sources in grants and loans and so forth. This is different. This is just the student amount, the amount allocated, I should say, per student at the state level. Reports have been, and research has shown that half the private schools in this state charge tuition that's greater than that base student $7,000 state cost. Half charge lower. So I think the deterrent, Ben, would be that a lot of people would not qualify for these benefits that can afford the increase. These accounts, I should say, and they would perhaps strongly consider exiting the private schools, so they just replace them one with the other. It's a market situation, is the point that I'm making, which is what it should be, Ben. So I don't fear that here in Mississippi. I think that's another overblown situation, and I guess I don't understand. Why would the public school care? People, the big staunch proponents of public schools, why would they care if the private schools raise their tuition? because the amount that the program under HB2 would provide to those with the accounts is still $7,000, right? So they may raise it, but that doesn't cost more. That's not the case with the federal government. As the tuition kept going up, so did the Pell Grants, so did the loans. I know, some second-order thinking required here. So I don't have a deep concern about that. I really don't. And in other states, there's no evidence that there was just this massive, if anything, like I said, if you look at all the various reports from the various organizations that are heavily involved in this issue, it's inconclusive. I mean, some say, yeah, it went up a little bit. Some say, no, there's really no change. And I'm not sure how they collect that data and what their methodology is, but that's what it is today. And that's what it says. I just feel like that's just some fear-mongering. And I'm going to point out once again, with respect to the private public schools, I know I've said this before, there's some 50,000 students in private schools in Mississippi. If every single one of them exited the private school and every private school shuttered and they enrolled in a public school, not only, Rhino, would every public school, not every, but many public schools in this state would be overwhelmed and they'd have a huge problem. But the state of Mississippi's budget would face a huge problem if those people demanded and insisted that they're going to public school and getting out of the private school, because we ain't got enough space for them, and that would require a lot of money coming right back.
New year, new...
You know what that means.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
We'll do it live
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Final segment of Midday. So our good friend, Professor Ron Richlack from the Ole Miss Law School, when we were talking about craziness in Virginia, Fairfax, that was the other one we were missing. I think it was Loudoun County's kind of was ground zero, the first situation where we saw this nutty stuff going on where parents were showing up and objecting. And then, Fairfax was in there about the same time. I think Arlington followed some a bit later. But again, it's interesting to me that it's the rich, white, liberal communities where this craziness was going. It's this feel-good virtue signaling crap, right? That's just destructive is what it was. So, also on the C Spire text line, any response to parents for high-performing school systems that our individual communities reward for doing a great job with our public school system is that we will now be overcrowded by kids from out of our district. No other effect but negative for currently good public school systems in Mississippi, says Joe. That's categorically false, Joe, and here's why. Because the legislation and past years' legislation as well always has included capacity restrictions, allowing the receiving school to deny the request for a transfer if they ain't got room. So how in the world would they, the only way they would ever get overwhelmed is if the people that make the decision in the receiving districts ignore that provision. We don't care if it overwhelms us. I don't think they do that. I just don't see that. If quite the opposite.
Not with how meticulously they count button seat money.
Absolutely, 100%. So that's like no risk in my view. That is one of the most overblown, misunderstood aspects. Nobody is calling for the overwhelming of any school district. Nobody supports that. This isn't designed for that. And so, yes, it's quite possible that a student who seeks to transfer to a high-performing school that is full is going to find their application rejected on that basis, because the bill, should it become law, would allow that, would provide for that decision to be made on that basis. So but, you know, if you got more butts in the seats, as you say, and more money coming in, and you have this additional fund that you could tap that's part of the bill to cover the local costs, is it a bad thing if that means, hey, we got to build more schools, add more space? You got the money for it. Is that a bad thing? Seems like that's a good thing. And I just point out again that, man, if we should, and I'm not just going to say that public school folks should thank. We all should extend gratitude to the people who do not have their children enrolled in public schools, but rather have chosen on their own accord to enroll in a private school. You can't ignore the fact, Rhino, that the budgets of the public schools are built on that expectation. They do. They know that the people that live in those districts, such as me, are going to pay taxes, ad valorem taxes, income sales taxes, don't have kids in school or have kids in the private schools, and most would say, yeah, those are the more affluent people that can afford that. That typically means they're paying more taxes, yet they're not getting the use out of those by their own choice. Now, I'm not mistaken about that. I'm not confused about that. I'm simply saying from a practical, mathematical, financial reality, if they all pull their kids out of the private schools and the private schools folded and they enrolled them in the public schools, there would be no space, though the law would require them to figure it out because they live in the district. And our budget would get blown to hell and back. What? We got all these students that have been paying these taxes but haven't been using the public schools? Well, we don't have enough money for that. That would happen at the local level, and it would happen at the state level, and your property taxes would go through the roof. That's just fact. They're subsidizing the public schools. Now, again, I admit their own decision, their own accord, their own choice. However, you can't ignore the financial reality of what I just described there. I did the math, by the way. I looked at my property tax bill. I got to go pay it here. It's due, as you know, February 1. I've paid $144,000 since I've been in my current house, 2008, to the school district. My kids graduated 1 in 8 and 1 in 10. It's 2 years. I'm not griping about that, and here's why. Because I believe that our society is best served when our population, our citizenry, I think as our founder said, are educated. So I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is restricting that education process to physical geographic boundaries is not, in my view, the most efficient use of the taxes I pay. Simple as that. Because I believe there are students that are being held back because they do not have choice. And it's some of that is academic, but to a greater extent, because all the surveys bear this out, it's bullying. We got the handcuffs on our teachers. We don't let them discipline bad kids. We got kids that come from unfortunate household situations. It makes them be bullies, etc. We got to get the good kids out of those environments. Have a great weekend. Do stay safe, everyone, in this weather, and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.